This episode is proudly sponsored by the Helix, a new innovation district located in New Brunswick, New Jersey, the heart of the Northeast Corridor. The Helix provides a critical ecosystem for innovation by offering a range of physical environments, a vibrant community of leading innovators, and a strategic central location on the Northeast Corridor. The Helix will uniquely mix workspaces, classrooms, laboratories, venues, and collaborative environments, creating a dynamic community and setting for innovative minds. Universities, startups, Fortune 500 companies, entrepreneurs, researchers, and many others will all call the Helix home. Thus far, the Helix has assembled a community of innovative private and public organizations, such as Rutgers Health, the New Jersey Innovation Hub, RWJ Barnabas Health, Hackensack Meridian Health, universities from Ireland and Israel, and others. The Helix is where ideas will come to life. To learn more, visit HelixNJ.com.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, how to get 30, how to get 20, 20, 20, how to get 20, 20, how to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 up front for 3 months plus taxes and fees. Promo rate for new customers for limited time. Unlimited more than 40 gigabytes per month. Slows full terms at mintmobile.com.
From NJ.com and the Star Ledger, welcome to the Rutgers Rant, your one-stop podcast for the Scarlet Knights, with your hosts Steve Politi and Rutgers insiders Brian Fonseca and Pat Lenny. Let's start shopping.
All right, welcome back to the Rutgers Rant. No Steve Politi. He is floating down the Seine River in bacteria and muck, probably with a baguette in his hand at the Paris Olympics. So today it's just me, Pat Lanny, my co-host Brian Fonseca. We're going to talk Big Ten Media Days, how to stop at basketball practice. So a lot of football today. We'll touch on basketball and wrestling at the end. And like I said, Politi, Mr. Paris, he's enjoying some fine wine, I've heard.
Too big time for us now, flying over to Europe and just wasting away his summer, leaving us schmucks back in Jersey talking about Rutgers football. But good for him. I think he's kind of earned the right to do that.
I think so too. He will be back at some point next week to do a podcast with us. He did say so. We will hold him to that, and we'll go from there. So let's kick this off. Let's talk about Big Ten Media Days. You and I will be flying out to Indianapolis tomorrow or today when this pod is released. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, excited. Our third media day together. Hopefully it won't be like the first one where we were stuck in Newark Airport for 8 hours, and this ride is a little smoother. And I think it's going to be the most exciting one for us three because there are some real expectations for this team. Last year, everyone was kind of curious, was this going to be the breakthrough bowl season? And now it seems like I've been thinking about this a lot this offseason. I've been asked this a lot this offseason. I'm curious to hear your thoughts too. To me, a bowl game seems like the bare minimum for this team for not to be considered a bad season, right? Like if you get to 6-6, that's fine. But it seems like this team has higher aspirations than that. At least the fan base does. And I'm curious to hear what the players say because I think a lot of these guys came back not just to go back to another Pinstripe Bowl.
I think you're so right. It's really interesting that Vegas has set the over and under win total at 6.5. Almost any person that asks me or talks to me about expectations this year, they're almost flabbergasted the win total is only 6.5. Based on the schedule, returning experience, things like that. So it's really interesting. I think expectations are so much higher. Obviously, one of the best things that came out of Media Day last year was Johnny Langan made this bold proposal on the spot at the podium, just basically saying this team's going to go to a bowl game. It's bowl game or bust was his direct quote. And that was a realistic goal, to break that drought. To get to 6-6 was a huge step for last year's team. So, Brian, what would be your truth serum seeking question that you'd want a Rutgers player to kind of say this year, based on that mold of Johnny Langan last year, making that great? What do you think they might say this year?
Unfortunately, there's no real marker outside of a bowl game. There's a bowl game or bust or college football playoff and bust. And I'm really shocked if any of them say that. I think realistically, right? A good season for Rutgers would be 8 wins, 9 wins. Like that would be a really, really good season. Obviously 10 wins or above, then you're talking about generational, one of the best seasons, maybe the best in program history. I think a great season, 8 wins to 9 wins. And I think that on the high end, that is realistic if things, most things go right. And I think a good season on the low end would be, again, a 6-6 bowl season, 7-5. But again, I just think with everyone looking at how things have played out, all the guys coming back, the defense coming back, the coaches coming back, the program breaking through last year, the lightness of the schedule. They have the softest schedule in the Big Ten, according to FPI, for whatever that's worth. It just feels like 7 wins would be a bit of a disappointment. So I think these guys are aiming for the minimum of 8 wins. That just feels to me the bare minimum for it to be like, all right, we came back and we take the next step forward. But I'm not sure there's a real quantifiable thing there,
Right. It's tough for someone to say, to give a bowl game or bust prediction this year when that's basically the floor. No one's going to go out and say, we're going to the college football playoffs. Obviously, they talk about winning national championships as the goal. No question. How could you be a team if that's not your goal? So they'll certainly have that maybe behind closed doors, but to come out and say that on TV or to reporters is a whole nother story, which makes it really interesting too.
I guess we can address the college football playoff thing now. People have talked about it, the way the playoff is opening to 12 teams now. We've kind of touched on it in previous podcasts. I think if literally everything goes right, like everything, injuries, referee decisions, players, every player playing better than last year, I think there's probably a 1 to 2% chance it's possible. I mean, just what do you even give that any thought?
All right, so I've really been going back and forth with this a lot too, just in my head, and then doing our Cleveland.com poll the last couple of days, doing research on all the other Big Ten teams and their schedules. It's just so crazy the way it worked out. So Rutgers doesn't play the perceived top 4 of the conference, right? Oregon, Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State. But they also don't play Iowa either, who could probably be the 5th best team. Probably the highest ranking team they're going to play is USC, who I think I put 6th in my poll. And then you start going through the other teams' schedules. The point I'm trying to make here is like there's at least 1 or 2 games that a lot of those teams are going to lose, whether Ohio State's playing Oregon, one of those teams is going to lose. Michigan, I think, plays Penn State. That's a game one of them's going to lose, right? So it's not like crazy to say, like, if in this dream scenario that Rutgers even has 1 loss, they might be playing in the Big Ten championship game based on the way the schedule for the other teams works out. It's not like crazy. And then if you're playing for a Big Ten title, even if you don't win, you still should theoretically be in the top 12, I would think.
I would agree.
I think it's a little higher than 1 or 2%. I would say like 10%.
That's a bold claim right there. I think the only thing that's holding me back is like there are very few teams that are good enough that consistently win these 50-50 games. Like Ohio State, if they're in a game, if it's not against Oregon, Alabama, or any of these top tier teams, I expect them to win, right? And I think Rutgers could win, in theory, individually, all these games. I think they could beat Washington. I think they could beat Nebraska on the road. I think they could beat Wisconsin at home. I'm just not sure they could win all of them in the same season, if that makes sense. Again, it just everything would have to go right. And listen, I think this could be, if all goes well, a 2006-esque season, but going to the college football playoff obviously would be 2006 on steroids.
Here's a great question. Would the 2006 team have gotten into the college football playoff in its current situation now, based off how that season ended? Obviously, you'd have to go back and look at the how it all shook out, but what they finished the year 12th, right? In the AP poll?
I have to look it up, but they didn't make it to a BCS bowl. I would assume that's teams that went to the BCS bowl would likely go, but it's a whole different system.
You got to win your conference to get to the BCS bowl, so that was the reason they didn't go, I guess.
Right. But it would be interesting. I don't know if maybe you put the 2006 team on today's schedule in today's day and age. Sure. But that's a whole other podcast. I think we can go into those hypotheticals.
This is great. All right, let's put it on our story list for Indianapolis. Would 2006 have made the college football playoff? Terrific.
Love it.
Best season in Rutgers modern history.
I think that's kind of when we're talking about expectations for the season, that is kind of the mark that they're competing with. The 06, 2012, the Big East championship team. Like, this team has a chance of doing something special like that. But even if they fall short, again, they could have the first winning record in a regular season since 2014. They could do a lot of things and break a lot of droughts along the way. So even if they don't reach these astronomical goals we're setting, I think they have a chance of having a good season where they break through again and take the next step forward as a program and keep building the pipeline and all these things that Greg Schiano likes to talk about that I'm sure he'll bring up in Indianapolis on Tuesday.
The dream season is certainly alive. One of the key players that will be relied on is Tareem Powell. Obviously, he's rehabbing back from a torn Achilles. Maybe a surprising pick that he's going to Indianapolis as one of the three representatives, considering the health question mark. What do you think about Powell's impact? And obviously, things are trending in the right way if he's going to Indy, I think.
Yes, I think if he wasn't recovering on the right timeline, as Greg Schiano said, at his golf outing last month, I don't think they would send him to Indy. So I think it's a great sign that he's there. I think if he does play in the first game, the schedule works out that those first two games allow him to kind of ease back with the injury. And I imagine that if things are working well, he'll be back, in training camp and kind of ease his way in and then play. I think we'll know the answer to these questions and where things stand next week because training camp starts the week after. And you got to imagine that they have an idea of where he'll be back. So I think on the field, we'll know where he is. And I think the fact that bringing him to media day shows the kind of leader he is and the status he has in that locker room, which is always a good sign that one of your best players is a guy you can trust to send to these things and represent the program.
All right. Did you see Powell at the ESPY Awards with Isaiah Pacheco, the two violent guys? That was awesome. It's the only way to put it.
Great representation for Rutgers as always. And it's good to see Isaiah Pacheco. He's two-time Super Bowl champion, getting shouted out by Taylor Swift. Big-time name. He still remembers the guys from his college, from his hometown, and he's bringing them to these big moments. You love to see stuff like that for sure.
Fantastic. All right, so Powell, linebacker, was playing at an extremely high level last season when he injured his hand/wrist against Indiana. What makes him such a special player in your eyes?
He's rangy. He's long. He's got the physical build. Goes sideline to sideline. Strong tackler, short tackler. I was looking over his numbers the other day. I think he had as many missed tackles as tackles for loss or something to that effect before he got hurt. So I think he's a great leader for you to have in the linebacker room next to Mohamed Toure, who's also coming to Big Ten Media Days. And I guess Mohamed Toure adds another element as an edge rusher, guy trying to get to the quarterback. I guess just what do you think about that linebacking core? They had a good year last year with Deion Jennings and Tyrone Powell. Now with Mohamed Toure there, I imagine roughly similar, if not better, results than they had last year.
Toure was a fascinating case if you go back and watch the film and how he transitioned to really more of a versatile sideline-to-sideline linebacker as opposed to a guy that just got after the quarterback early in his career. I thought he played really well in that transition. And so now he has a year of experience. I think you're going to see an even better Mo Toure this year. I'm sure he'll talk about that a lot in Indy. And that's part of the reason why he came back, right? Like he said, all right, I had 1 year at this newish position for me. Even though he of course he's played that position in the past, like this was his first full focus on doing a lot more things than just straight bull rushing and trying to get to the quarterback. So he's one of the biggest X factors in my mind for this team. There's no question. And a great personality. If you peel the curtain back, all these guys going to Indy are fantastic. Great personalities. They're gonna do so well with the camera in their face. So worth mentioning that. Another guy, the last guy going to Indy we haven't talked about, obviously, is Kyle Monangai. So important to this team, coming off such a great season, leading the Big Ten in rushing. What do you think his story is this year, and what does he have to do to really? He's obviously a household name at this point, but still, when you see these watch lists and things like that, he still doesn't get the respect that he deserves, I think. What's your opinion on that?
Sure, I think you could totally argue that after the results from last year. What I'm interested about him is last year, again, no one knew who he was. No one was putting him on these lists. No one even thought he would start. People thought Sam Brown, coming off the injury, would still be the leading rusher. And then Kyle Monangai comes out of nowhere and has that huge year. Frankly, wins a couple games for Rutgers against Virginia Tech, Michigan State, has some big performances. My curiosity now is, now that he is the hunted, to use that overused cliche, people know who he is, people know what to expect, and people know that Kirk Ciarrocca is going to run the rock, 60% of the time, roughly, again, and they're going to depend on him. Is he going to be able to have similar production? He had great numbers as far as forcing missed tackles and kind of winning yards on his own. He had the help of an improving offensive line. Is that line going to make similar forward progress this year as well. I'm just curious to see if he's able to, maybe not the same numbers. I don't expect him to lead the Big Ten in rushing again, but is he able to have roughly the same production and make a similar impact, having been, being the hunted now, and how much help he's going to have from the rest of the running back room. Last year was really Kyle Monangai leading the charge. Is Sam Brown going to be back to who he was 2 years off that injury? Ed Gurrier or any of the other young running backs they have in that room, or Jashawn Benjamin, what's their impact going to be? I think that's really the interesting thing. And you wrote a lot about Kyle last year. You talked to him a lot. You talked to his family. What is your sense of him as a person being able to handle, kind of the spotlight now?
It's so funny. I did talk to a lot of people around Kyle last year. There's no question. And I've covered Kyle since he was at Seton Hall Prep, actually, before he even went to Don Bosco. So I've been around him for a really long time. I've always got the sense that he's a really smart, intelligent kid, works as hard as possible to get what he wants and knows what he wants, right? So he's like very realistic and driven in that sense. His family is a great motivation for him. And even the doubters, the naysayers, to me, has always been what's fueled Kyle Monangai. I've probably been one of them throughout his career. And I think it's just so fascinating. But a lot of people in the media and the naysayers of Kyle Monangai point to the games where he didn't have big games, against Iowa and Michigan. He got shut down against last year, even Wisconsin. But he had such a great game against Ohio State. So I always kind of take it like there were some really good games. There's some disappointing games, but right in the middle is kind of exactly where you expect him to be. And I thought that was the real representation of his season. I'm really curious to see how I thought Gavin Wimsatt was a great counterpart to Kyle's success last year. The way they ran the read option so well was huge for Kyle's success and Rutgers overall. I'm curious to see how that works with Ethan Kaliakmanis now playing quarterback and just how the offense evolves out of this one-dimensional approach where it was 60% run, 40% pass, but it was just so unbalanced, it seemed, in the grand scheme of things. So you watched a lot of his film. What's your assessment on how not only he's played, but how he's handled becoming the guy here at Rutgers now that that's all set?
Yeah, I'm curious to see, to your point, are they going to run the ball 60% of the time like they did last year, which they did, I think, a lot out of necessity, given a bit of the limitations of the wide receiver room. Now that you have a new quarterback who you hope is more accurate, now that you have a wide receiver core that you hope is deeper and more talented at the top end, with Dymere Miller coming in and a lot of guys, Nassim Brantley coming back, Chris Long, and a lot of these younger guys having an opportunity to rise up, are they going to be able to help the quarterback and the offense be able to be more balanced, as you mentioned? Kaliakmanis is not the same as a runner as Gavin Wimsatt, I think is fair to say. I think he's a bit underrated as a runner. I think he'll be able to run the read option, maybe not to a similar level and maybe not to how often he did with Gavin Wimsatt, but I think that could be something. I just think the biggest thing he needs to be is a better game manager, a better, more accurate passer, complete the simple passes that Gavin Wimsatt struggled with so often, which was really the killer for that offense the last 2 years. Just being unable to move the chains by not being able to complete a 5-yard slant or a bubble screen, or just the consistently quote unquote easy passes that Gavin Wimsatt can do. I think that's going to be the biggest thing that Ethan Kaliakmanis adds. And then the rest we'll see. I'm really curious to see how he looks in training camp. And more importantly, how he looks in the first couple of games. I think that'll be really telling. But I think those are the expectations on him. I don't know what everyone else thinks, but to me, if he is able to complete a good amount of his passes and not turn the ball over, I don't think anyone expects him to be this big play quarterback. I don't think anyone expects a Heisman season. I think the expectation is really be an improvement over Gavin Wimsatt in the passing game and be good enough in the running game that you're not missing Gavin Wimsatt too much in that aspect.
Experience the Heldrich Hotel, a luxury hotel that's perfect for both the business and leisure traveler. Ideally located within minutes of Rutgers University, the Heldrich is convenient to all the action and activities at SHI Stadium, Jersey Mike's Arena, and the Rutgers University campus. The moment you walk through the doors of the Heldrich Hotel and Conference Center, you know you're someplace different. A place with an independent spirit and a boutique vibe. A place where you can immerse yourself in your meeting or event as easily as you can the local culture. Located in the heart of the city, the Heldrich lets you experience all that New Brunswick has to offer. Whether you're coming to New Brunswick for a fun weekend with friends, in town for a Scarlet Knights game, or attending a business meeting, book your accommodations today at theheldrich.com.
Certainly. We talked about the offense, talked about the defense. When we got to 2006, and we were going back talking about that, obviously, when you go back and listen to Shiano, it's always like we knew we had a great defense coming back. We knew we were going to have a pretty good offense, but it just took off to another level. I think the difference is like I can't see the offense just transcending the way it did back, like in that season. That's just my initial thought on that. But it'll be an interesting thing if anyone asks them in Indianapolis, the comparison to expectations in this preseason versus what the feeling was like at the time back in for the 2006 season. I don't know if there's any real comparison, but kind of feels like things are trending that way. I don't know. At least the hype. There's certainly hype for the first time in a long time.
Definitely agree. I have a vague memory of Greg Schiano saying last year that the team reminded him of 2005. I believe it was even you that asked the question, right?
Yeah.
It ended up being pretty prophetic the way things worked out. I guess I would be curious myself to see if he would compare this to 2006, because I do think the hype is there. I haven't been around for a lot of these big years. I wasn't there before 06 or 2011 or 2012 or 14 before the Big Ten. But as far as I've been covering around Rutgers football for 8 years now. I can't remember a preseason with this much expectations and excitement, or even really close to it, since I've been following.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so one of the big things that it was so interesting. I felt obligated to write about it. 247 Sports put out a list of every Big Ten team's trap game. Looking at the schedule, here's a team that should be on upset alert. 247 picked. They said the trap game that Rutgers should be looking out for is UCLA. That UCLA could sneak up on them and steal that one in Piscataway. Conversely, Washington should be on upset alert when it comes to SHI Stadium. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think UCLA certainly could be a trap game because people think they're really, really down under Chip Kelly. I think a lot of the games at the back end of the year, they have this stretch of Maryland, Illinois, and Michigan State. I'm not sure those are trap games per se. I'm not sure Rutgers has a true, trap game. Howard and Akron maybe, but no one really expects them to lose those, right? But I think any of those 3-2 are like, these are 50-50 games where Rutgers, I think, will either be slightly favored or slightly underdogs, and that will determine the trajectory of the season. And I think, obviously, Virginia Tech is the most important game of the season. I don't know about trap games. I guess maybe for USC, I would argue Rutgers is a trap game because I'm imagining USC will be ranked. I'm not sure Rutgers will be ranked at that time, but I would not be surprised at all if Rutgers goes into LA and upsets USC. I guess, what did you think of the 247 evaluation of the trap games?
I loved that they picked that Washington game because if you think about the scenario, Rutgers would be, if all goes well, Rutgers goes down to Virginia Tech, beats Virginia Tech, wins the two non-conference games against Akron and Howard that they should. They'll be 3-0 ahead of that game. It's the blackout game Friday night. Washington is coming off such a great season, and I know things are so different there. It's a whole new team, whole new everything, but you still get the shot to say you beat the team that played in for a national championship last year. I think that's sick if you're a Rutgers player, a Rutgers fan. Like, the hype for that game is going to be something that we haven't seen in a while at SHI Stadium. Like, I think it's going to be one of those big atmosphere type games that's going to be really special. So I thought it was a great pick from that perspective. And 247 actually laid out a great reason for why the UCLA game is a good trap for Rutgers, because it's sandwiched, I think, between that USC game and another Big Ten game. So the timing, the point is the timing makes it really dubious for Rutgers in that sense. So definitely, I thought great picks, and that Washington game is certainly such a great game, especially if Rutgers goes down to Blacksburg and wins.
I think Rutgers has a lot of newspaper headline games like that. Like last year, the Miami win was a huge newspaper headline game. If you look deep into it, Miami didn't have a lot of their starters, and it was a pinstripe bowl. But if you shoot out to just the big headline, Rutgers finally beats Miami, right? And I
Yeah.
think you got Rutgers could win a road game at Virginia Tech. Rutgers could win a road game at USC. Rutgers could win a road game at Nebraska. Rutgers could beat national runners-up with Washington. Like a lot of these games that, when you dig in the details, might not be as impactful, but from a national scale, I think Rutgers can make some noise with these wins. So yeah, a lot of opportunities like that. You kind of just reminded me of that when you said that.
All right, Politi's not here, but I'm going to hit you with a true or false. Rutgers coach Greg Schiano will discuss the schedule and give some sort of money quote per se.
I'll say true because it's there, right? They played the hardest schedule in the Big Ten for 10 years running.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a joke to be made about the gods blessing them karma, something much funnier than I can think of. So I'll say true. I imagine you'd have a similar answer.
He's always been good about it, so yeah, I think true as well. It's just so crazy that the way this whole schedule. Because if remember before Washington and Oregon joined the conference, the Big Ten put out a schedule, and it was brutal for Rutgers, right, in 2024. So it's unbelievable how that even changed again. So I think it's a really funny story. We'll see what he says on the record and everything, and how the question's phrased, I think is important too. So we will do our job as good journalists to make sure we get that question asked for sure. Any other thoughts on Indy before we shift gears here?
No, I'm looking forward to having our annual trip to St. Elmo's and having the shrimp cocktail as we will annoyingly talk about on the next podcast, recapping it. I'm excited for football season to start, talking season to start. We've been previewing this stuff for months on end, and I think you would agree that I'm excited to just have some actual football or actual discussions to talk about rather than all the hypotheticals we've been going over and over and over again.
Right. Well, we'll keep predicting the college football playoff and Rutgers, the percentage as it increases as the season goes and decreases. I think that's going to be just a nonstop thread on the Rutgers rant, and I'm all about it. So I won't stop that. Brian and I were at basketball practice last week. It was a good session. You want to update that, Brian?
Sure. You and I went on a Thursday. Sorry. It was Wednesday we went. It was a bit of a light one. No 5-on-5, no 1-on-1, a lot of shooting, a lot of things of that nature. So you can only take so much away. But, I thought PJ Hayes looked as good as he did the first time I saw him. And that was really the big takeaway for me. Was there any really big takeaway that you saw from your first look at the team?
I really, I thought I've read a lot about what Pike was saying about Emmanuel Agbole, how he looks physically. I thought with my own eyes, I agreed with that. He looks really fit, really in shape. I thought he played really well in a couple of drills and things. So I'm not saying I'm buying the total spin and revelation that Rutgers has this great option at center, and that's the reason why they couldn't get a guy in the transfer. I'm not saying any of that. I'm just saying from a physical standpoint, Emmanuel Agbole looked a lot more like Cliff Amori did last year, physically from a body perspective, than he did as himself the season before. He's put on a lot of muscle. He's toned. He's got long arms. So I thought physically I was impressed with Agbole. And then Peichel was talking afterwards after practice that when someone asked him about Dylan Harper injury, certainly everything's on track there. Tyson Akoff on track there. You could read Brian's reporting on that. But he also said that Ace Bailey has this magnetic personality and people are drawn to him, and he's kind of larger than life. And I got that sense just sitting there watching the people. He's always laughing. People were, just drawn to him in a lot of ways. So I could see that. And I thought I watched a lot of Bailey, and I watched a lot of free throw shooting as well. And I did not see Ace Bailey miss a free throw. I think he was like 13 for 13. I thought that was fantastic. So I was very impressed with Bailey and the personality there. So 2 things from me.
It's a good mix to have one of your best players, if not your best player, be one of the best personalities on the team. Steve talks a lot about energy givers. He mentioned that on his podcast yesterday, like guys who come into practice and add energy rather than taking it away. I think Jeremiah Williams, the guy we talked to, is another one of that. It's why he's probably the favorite to be a captain of this team. Just kind of shows a lot of leadership in guiding the young guys and adds a lot of energy and positive momentum whenever he's on the floor, hyping guys up, dapping them up, saying good things. So again, it's the summer. I think most programs feel really good about themselves in the summer, but I would say the vibes are pretty strong at Rutgers. The guys seem to be enjoying practicing together and being together. So I thought that was about the only takeaway we can have from watching what we saw. So things kind of the program is another 2 more weeks. They end on August 9th. So hopefully things continue on well health-wise for them. And like you said, Dylan Harper and Tyson Acuff per Peichel should be good to go by the time they start ramping things back up in the fall. And for their sake, they'll be knocking on wood that those will be the only injury issues they have for the foreseeable future.
Be pounding nails and knocking on wood, right? Of course. I was upset because we were at practice, and then like 24 hours later, there's a video online of them playing paintball. I would love to go play paintball with the Rutgers basketball team and just be around, not even play. I just love to cover that. That was a great trip, pretty hilarious video. So something else off the court there. What else we got? Anything else?
Well, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on 2 topics. One serious and one a little less serious. The serious one is wrestling. If you have any updates there, I know they've been looking to fill the assistant coaching spot with Donnie Pritzloff moving over to Columbia. If you have any updates there or insight that you can share with us.
I don't have any updates on the coaching search. It's been more than a month now. I know they've had a couple interviews. They're being very tight-lipped about it. When the process is done, we will be told. And but I do know that Coach Goodale is really targeting guys with Big Ten experience. He wants like a proven guy in the conference, certainly, like to fill the role that Donnie had coming in. Right, Donnie was a Big Ten guy, also a Jersey guy, which helped. He was the perfect hire. Did great job, obviously. So he's just trying to find as best a fit, someone to fit the mold of Donnie Pritzloff, which is hard to find, of course. They'll do their due diligence. Another wrestling thing, Jackson Turley announced that he'll be back for his 6th season. Starter at 174 the last 4 or 5 years. Really opened up in an interview with me this past week about, going to a dark place mentally after not reaching his goals at nationals last year. He wanted to be an All-American and kind of flamed out. Tough loss in the consolation bracket. But yeah, I thought that was a great interview, and having him back will be huge. So Rutgers will have 4 guys in the lineup who have been All-Americans in their career in the past. So Dylan Chauver, Jackson Turley, Paz, Nansky, and Yara, the heavyweight. So it's pretty good. From an off-season perspective, getting Yara back was huge. Turley back is huge. So things are going well there. It's going to be a very experienced team. But you can basically say every starter from last season's back, because Joey Oliveri, who redshirted last year, is filling in for Mitch Moore, who's out of eligibility, 141. So yeah, I think the lineup's looking really good. We'll see. And of course, with the Olympics starting, everyone will be watching Sebastian Rivera. He's wrestling for Puerto Rico. He'll be if you're watching the opening ceremonies on Friday, he'll be the flag bearer for Puerto Rico, which is super cool and interesting. So a lot of people have also said that Sebastian Rivera could be a candidate for the coaching position, or maybe everyone else kind of gets a bump and Rivera becomes not the associate head coach, but on the staff. So we'll see. Maybe it's a possibility. I think he would be great in the role. He's obviously been in the room training and a member of the SKWC, the Scarlet Knight Wrestling Club. And he's a great ambassador for New Jersey, and he'll be a big face at the Olympics. So I know Politi will be certainly tracking that down for sure.
Yep. Looking forward to reading his reports on Sebastian Rivera winning Olympic gold. Would be great for everyone involved. And my other thought is, I share similar feelings to you, I think, on this college football video game that's come out. It's been the talk of the entire, sports industry, specifically people who cover college football. I'm not a gamer. I don't really play video games in general. I was not a player of the CFB games growing up, so I don't really have this nostalgic attachment that everyone has. So I've kind of missed the boat on this. But you tweeted the other day about maybe quitting Twitter over the CFB game. I just love for you to expand on that, because I can feel your angst just through the tweet.
It's crazy, man. I actually did play that video game growing up. I remember distinctly, played Madden a lot, of course, as well. But like the obsession is so over the top. It's crazy. So a little background here. Every day you go on Twitter, all you see is people clipping screenshots of them playing the game as if Rutgers has won 20 straight national championships. They just Ethan Kelly-McManus threw for 500 yards against Alabama. And like it's not what I'm on Twitter to see. I don't want to see you playing a video game, but it's just completely saturated my social media, and I can't take it. I am at the point, like you said, I might have to leave. I might have to leave Twitter. Maybe there's a TikTok coming. Who knows? Lanny could be on TikTok. We'll see. But I just and beyond just people commenting and taking this video game into the real world, like we've now gotten to the point where there are people who cover college football that are using evaluations from the game to justify points and like rank players based on their player grades in the game. I'm just like, this is just gone way too far. Like, and we've crossed the line, but literally crossed the line between reality and whatever you want to call a video game, like the next dimension. It's ruining my life right now. I need some sanctity in my life, so thankfully this trip will provide it.
I don't blame you. I was getting filled with this PR push that every day they were dropping, top 100 player rankings, and then another day it was like the top 10 hardest places to play, which a podcast I frequently reference, the College Football Inquirer, Dan Wetzel and those guys are like, what does an engineer at EA Sports know about how difficult it is to play at Autzen Stadium versus Bryant Denny and it's true, right? Like, I understand that this fills a content void, and I'm all about content, believe me. I'm all about trying to kill the dead days in July, but I agree with you. It's a video game, people. Like, I'm it's fine. You like to play the game, cool. I've seen way too much of it as well as my Twitter timeline.
Crazy.
I'm with you here. I'm looking again. This is another reason why I'm so excited for actual football to start.
Yeah.
So we can talk about that instead of how people are doing. Taking Kent State to the 2036 national championship. Good for you, bro. Put it on Twitch. Keep it off my Twitter.
Yeah.
I'm begging you.
At least we know we will never have it's Twitch is the video game platform. We will never have Twitch accounts. I'm pretty confident saying that I will never be on that platform. So the last thing that I have to bring up about the video game, it got to the point where we're leaking player evaluations from the video game like a week before the game came out. Oh, this guy's gonna be at 86. I just couldn't. It's blowing my mind. I'm so done.
Thankfully, I think the craze is over. I think eventually, hopefully, it'll wear out. And I'm glad we're the old cranky man, get off my lawn.
Oh my God.
Takes on this in the college football universe. I'm with you here. I'm sure Play would feel the same. Play probably hasn't played a video game in 15 years. So he might not even know this is going on, to be honest.
Conversely, one of the greatest video games I ever played was Mario vs. Sonic at the Olympic Games on the Wii. Fantastic video game. I will give you player grades for Wario and Donkey Kong. I can go on and on about how great of a shot putter Donkey Kong is. But that would just ruin my reputation. Not going to do it. So we'll save it for St. Elmo's, I guess.
All right, I guess that's all we got for the Rutgers Rant. First time in a while. Glad to talk to you guys again, and looking forward to seeing what people say in Indy. And we'll talk to you about that and give a preview to training camp next time we chat, sometime late next week. And hopefully Plitty is with us. But if not, he'll be, like you said, in Paris having a baguette and looking at the Eiffel Tower. So until then, enjoy your week, guys. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Rutgers Rant. To participate in the conversation and receive live updates about the Scarlet Knights directly to your phone, sign up at NJ.com/insider.